ideas, good ones and bad ones. We need to learn stuff about the world. We need an honest, intelligent, thought-provoking, and entertaining review of what the hell happened on this planet in the last 7 days. We need to sit back and listen to the Iron Fist and the Velvet Glove.
Yes, dear listener, and it is just the Iron Fist and the Velvet Glove. No Joe the Tech Guy tonight. So just back to the original two. Scott, how are you up there in regional Queensland?
I'm great, thanks, Trevor. Yeah, I've got absolutely no complaints at all. Yeah,
That's good. That's the spirit. Yeah, I don't have
How are
any
you?
complaints either.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. Well, these two old white guys are going to talk about the world, news and politics, sex and religion, all the things you're not supposed to talk about at a dinner party. Nobody does talk about them at dinner parties anymore, Scott, because I don't think people have dinner parties anymore. Do people host dinner parties anymore? Is that just
I used to, but I used to have a bigger house and everything like that. Now I just don't have the space. We probably go out to dinner a little more often than what we used to.
Yes. So, anyway, that's the what we're about on this podcast, exploring what's going on in the world, trying to explain it, give our hot take on what's happened in the week. So, we'll kick off momentarily with my latest boomer interactions of the week. Not quite boomer interactions, but close enough. Scott will then talk about local politics with the Nationals deciding on net zero. And
it's like they love opposition, isn't it?
And the national tail wagging the Liberal dog.
Yes, exactly.
We'll talk about that. News poll, just how is it working out for the Liberals and the Nationals and for Pauline Hanson and others. News Corp, they're supporting coal miners. I'll explain that. Albanese's come back from a successful trip with visiting Trump. Got a great clip about Trump and a gift he got from Korea. Look forward to that one. Bubbles, financial bubbles. Scott, with the millions that you're sitting on, just in terms of the stock market, quick look at what's happening. Are we in a dangerous bubble situation with the stock market? Dear listener, don't rely on a podcast for financial advice, and we're certainly not giving any, but we'll dabble into that. Bit on artificial intelligence, of course, a bit about Gaza, and a few other bits and pieces. People crazy enough to try and visit the United States who perhaps have been critical of either Charlie Kirk or Israel, for example. Look out if you're heading into the United States. You'll get potentially booted out. We'll talk about all that and more over the next hour or so. Scott, our friends visited yesterday, and they had come from Woolworths, where they'd just been shopping. And they walked out, local Coolangatta here. They walked out of Woolworths, and somebody handed them a chocolate and a piece of paper. And so they took it, walked off, and as they sort of unfolded the paper, guess what it was?
It was an invitation to a church service?
Close. Excuse me, sir/madam, are you saved? If you died tonight, are you going to heaven? And then it was Genesis 1, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then another one, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Jesus loves you. Jesus is king. That's what it's getting to now, Scott, is that they're hanging around the outside of supermarkets, handing out chocolates and a bit of scripture verse.
Yeah, I've been noticing just a few little bits of that's been hitting my letterbox lately.
Right.
It's just, I just throw it out, but it's just one of those things. I just think to myself that if you are potentially prone to that type of thing, like, the difference between heaven and hell does scare people. And it used to scare me a long time until I realized it doesn't exist.
Yes.
So it's just one of those things. well, I mean, I can understand why they're doing it, but I don't like the fact that they're doing it. It's just
Yeah.
it
So here's
really
a
should be
chocolate
criminal.
and here's a bit of scripture at the same
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
The reason I mention it is because my friends are
Mm.
clearly, atheists, I would say, and they were, they handed it to me with a bit of a laugh, and because they knew I'd be amused by it. Because somehow I come across as a bit of an atheist. We never really discussed religion that much, but they've pegged me as one, and they were sort of scoffing, a bit about the whole concept of these people handing out scripture. And then later on in our conversation, we talked about our lives and schooling, and they'd sent their two daughters to Catholic schools in both primary and secondary.
Mm.
And I said, hang on a minute, you only half an hour ago were scoffing at this religious dogma that was handed to you with a chocolate. And now I'm learning that you actually subjected your two children to 12 years of Catholic schooling. We had a bit of a laugh over that. But anyway.
It's one of those things. My brother's also, he sent his kids through Catholic school right from primary and everything else. And I said to him, do you honestly believe it was the right thing to do? You consider the sort of schooling we had and everything else. I said, I said to mum and dad, I said, do you really think you got what you paid for? Do you honestly believe it was worth the money?
Mm.
And they said, well, you made it to university, didn't you? I said, yeah, but we're never going to know if I would have made it to university if you'd sent me down the road to the local high,
Indeed, yes.
Anyway.
Indeed. So anyway, that was that. So Scott,
Hmm.
net zero. So the Nationals have come out and they've basically announced they're abandoning a commitment to reach net zero emissions by 2050. And what David
They're
Little,
assuming that they're going to be in office before 2050. And that is a very big assumption that they've actually made. Anyway, I can talk about it later.
well, what he said was that this is Little Proud, proposed pegging Australia's emissions reductions efforts to the OECD average. So he's saying that figure is about half the pace of Australia's current trajectory. So the Nationals are basically saying, look, it's tough. Why should we be leading the world in reducing emissions? We should just be somewhere in the middle of the pack in terms of our trajectory. What do you say to that, Scott?
No, it's a load of nonsense. We live in a renewable energy superpower. We have the potential to generate all of our electricity using renewables. Now, we do have gas as a backup, and I actually say that as a big thing. It should be a backup, not what the Queensland government's just done up here, which we'll talk about later. It is a ridiculous thing that the National Party has actually done, because I honestly believe that in their heart of hearts, I think that they do not believe the CSIRO that says the cheapest way to generate electricity is through renewables.
Mm.
Or if they do believe it, they must be trying to prop up their mates in the coal industry or something else.
Mm.
Because, net zero, it makes perfect sense for the country's economy. It makes perfect sense for the individual's economy and that sort of stuff, because if it's going to reduce my power bill, that'll be good.
The other part of this, Scott, is clearly if you have a manufacturing type of industry, then you're going to get to generate more emissions than if you're a service-based economy.
Mm-hmm.
And we have outsourced manufacturing to places like China.
Absolutely we have.
And undoubtedly you need to use more, carbon in terms of that industrial stuff of making cars and gadgets and all the rest of it. So it's just the idea that we should be in the middle of the pack when you've got other countries that are doing the dirty work of manufacturing and we're saying they should be at the same pace as us, that just is a very selfish view of the world.
It's not only selfish, it's a ridiculous view of the world, because China is actually, they're dicking all over us when it comes to renewable energy. They've taken the bull by the horns and they said, this is what we're going to do. They have rolled out more solar than, I think in 1 year, they have rolled out more solar than Australia has in total
I think something like almost the world's got, like they're
Yeah.
rolling it out unbelievably. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've also got shitloads of wind turbines and everything else. Now, you can get into an argument about whether or not they're actually cutting off water supplies to their nearest neighbours and everything else through hydroelectric dams, but it's just one of those things that they have actually done, and they're producing their electricity increasingly via renewables or by nuclear energy. And I don't believe that we should have a nuclear industry over here in Australia because it would be very expensive for us to do that. But if you've got a history of using nuclear power, then there shouldn't be a problem for you. And China
if you don't have any other choice.
Exactly. Well, China at the time didn't have any choice, so they went into nuclear power. Now that they've got a choice, it'll be interesting to see whether or not they do keep their nuclear reactors going. I suspect they will because they've got to enrich their uranium for their weapons. But anyway.
So that's the National Party. The politics of this, Scott, seem to be that the electorate is not going to swallow this sort of position. It seems, at least in the urban centres where most of the votes are.
Exactly, which means, if the Liberals actually follow them down on this suicide path, then I honestly believe that they've got no hope of removing the ALP for a good couple of generations. And what actually could end up happening is that the Teals could end up becoming the non-Labor force in Australia, and they could actually incorporate their own party and everything else, which means that the Teals would end up being the official opposition.
Yes, there's a potential split. This is according to the Australian Financial Review, potential split incoming within the Liberal Party between those Conservative MPs wanting to move away from net zero and the moderates aware that the move hampers the ability to win back seats in urban Australia. So the Financial Review sort of forecasting potential split in the Liberals. And
which is one of those things. I just think to myself that the ALP has been through a split before. I think the Liberals are probably primed for a split right now. The Nationals will survive because they are, for some reason, they've convinced people that they are actually out for the rural voter and that sort of stuff. They're not. They're out for coal mines now.
Yes, we'll talk about that in a moment. Liberal MPs stuck around in Canberra on Friday. According to the Australian Financial Review, apparently that meeting resulted in broad agreement that net zero had to be watered down. So that's what the Liberals are going to be doing. Speaking on the ABC Insiders program, the Labor Environment Minister, Murray Watt, declared, "We got the National Party, which didn't even rate 4% of the vote in the last federal election, dictating terms to the Liberal Party, who claim to be the majority party in a coalition." I mean, the idea that you would hand over climate and energy policy to the likes of Matthew Canavan and the ghost of Barnaby Joyce is like handing Dracula the keys to the blood bank. That's a good turn of phrase.
It is, yeah. I'm not... Well, Murray Watt, he's certainly better than the opposition, but I'm not convinced that he's done the right thing over the EPCB Act or EPBC Act, whatever it is.
Labor's just getting a free ride because there is no opposition.
Yeah, no, there is no opposition right now because, they're imploding on themselves.
All they can do is talk about culture war issues and whether, what was his name? Albanese wearing a Joy Division T-shirt when he got off a plane. And that's just fascinated the opposition and Sky News and everybody else, which claims that it's a nod to Nazism.
There was something, okay.
But you could find that about anything. If you wanted to dig enough. It's just a T-shirt about a rock band, for God's sake. So, yeah. Alex is in the chat room. Good on you, Alex. Make your comments in the chat room if you are there. We will try to incorporate them if we can. So, let's see. Another minister, Mark Butler, says, "It appears the coalition is going to be led by a party, the Nationals, that is allergic to the future, that dragged the country back 30 or 40 years ago, divided in itself by people who don't believe in climate change, and those who might believe in climate change but just don't think it's worth doing anything about. I think that's a substantial number. Scott, when they talk about the cost of net zero, there's not enough talk about the cost of not doing anything and what could happen to the world if the oceans rise by the levels predicted, given so much of our infrastructure and homes and everything is right on the coastline. I'm sitting in a dangerous spot here at Coolangatta where if the sea levels rise, it's not going to be pretty. So there's an enormous cost to the community coming.
One of those things, and, at some point, the government...
Is that a curlew?
Say again?
Is that a curlew that I can hear?
It's some sort of bird.
Right, yeah.
It just screeches every now and again. Yeah, I couldn't tell you. Sorry about that. I've got my windows open because it's bloody hot up here.
Yeah.
Where was I saying? The government has to be held to account financially before it's actually going to do anything. And, Zali Steggall's been making noise about having resilience packages and all that sort of stuff, actually given, I think she's given up on us doing anything about climate change, and she actually wants us to actually do something about the impacts of climate change. Now, okay, we're a little country and everything else. We're at the mercy of what happens in Europe and the United States, I would have thought, more so than anywhere else. But I'm not convinced that's the right thing to do. I think it lets the government off the hook if you actually have a resilience package and everything else that you're spending billions of dollars on every year. Like, you just got to look at the price of insurance. North of Rockhampton, it's getting ridiculous, actually. There are a number of people I've spoken to up here that say that they can no longer afford to insure their homes.
Right.
Now, it hasn't happened yet up here because the body corporate and everything that I'm part of where I live, they've got a cheaper rate through Amy, I think, so we've just switched over. Now, the insurance on the other place that I own with my brother, it has gone up substantially, but it's still affordable. It's just, it is one of those things that you've got to watch out for.
Yes. So, Scott, the polls. So a news
they were
poll
disastrous.
came out. So Coalition hits historic low of 24% is the primary vote. Less than a quarter of people. The Coalition under Susan, I keep forgetting how it's pronounced. It's Lee.
Susan Ley.
Lee? Gosh, I just don't hear it often.
I think it's Susan Ley, isn't it?
She's crashed. It's crashed at 24% primary vote.
But is it entirely her fault, or is it the fault of the dickheads around her?
I've got nothing to say favourable about it, but it's
neither do I.
The mess
but,
that's around her that she's inherited. Yes.
Yeah.
Her net approval rating is minus 33%. Minus 33. So the difference between people who approve of her and those who disapprove is 33. That's huge. Meanwhile, Pauline Hanson's party is at a record primary vote of 15%. Not that far behind the Liberals.
No. Which is, why she's making hay while the sun shines. She's running around the country and everything else, predicting that, she's going to be the next opposition leader and all that type of thing, which I just don't think she's right. I don't think that she's going to win anything in the lower house or anything else.
Yeah, so
but she could actually end up dominating the Senate, which is a real problem.
Well,
but Labor and the Greens would probably still have the majority. Sorry, I'll shut up.
Yeah, sorry, 58% of people are dissatisfied with her compared to 17%. Compared to 25% who are satisfied. So that's where the 33 net disapproval rating comes from, which is worse than Peter Dutton's worst result. His worst was minus 24, and that was just on the eve of the election. So, anyway, her supporters are saying that the detractors remain divided, no obvious challenger in the wings, and no war room has been established. So that was that.
else have I got here? And Labor holds a commanding 54 to 27% lead in terms of leadership. That's Albanese over Lay, and just on the primary vote, ALP 57 to 43. So they're just not doing much, Labor, and what they are doing is pretty poor, Scott, in terms of changes they've made to freedom of information, the Crime Commission fiasco with Brereton, just continuing to bear down on AUKUS, a bunch of other cock-ups that they're basically doing, but this opposition are so poor that these guys are getting away with it. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, somewhere in here I had... oh, yes, it's coming up in this article here. So, Scott, fear not. There's a new group who are going to resurrect the Liberal Party.
Oh, God.
This was an article in the Courier Mail, dear listener, which I read so that you don't have to. And often these sorts of articles are more comical than the comics page. So, yeah. 3 Queensland Conservatives have formed an association for ordinary Liberal members to take back control from party chiefs that they say have betrayed Conservative values. What this article is getting to, dear listener, is that the Liberal Party has not been conservative enough and just lurched to the left. And 3 rich old white guys are going to fix it by taking it even more conservative. That's where we're heading with this article. So, under the model proposed by the Liberal Reform Association, members alone would pre-select candidates to contest local council, state and federal election. And look, I thought members were the only ones who pre-selected anyway, which is the problem with the Liberals is that at the branch level, you've got
70-year-old men that are the members of the party.
And you've got Christian groups who are basically telling their supporters, go and join the Liberal Party and sign this form and pay your dues, and we'll tell you when to show up and how to vote. And at crucial pre-selection meetings, the regular branch members look around and find all these people they've never seen before, but who are registered members, all looking at their phones, waiting to be told how to vote, and who then vote and then disappear into the dark, never to be seen again. And they ultimately vote for a hard right Christian nationalist type character. And so that was already happening in the Liberal Party, but they're going to make it so that branch members or members can vote for the leader as well. They don't want the politicians voting for their leader. So
I can understand that point of view, but it doesn't really work. You've got the example of the Tories over there in the UK that ended up with, I can't even remember what her name is, but Liz Truss, she also won it on the back of the membership vote. We all know how that turned out.
Yeah. Well, one of these 3 guys said party leaders would be elected by the party members, not the sitting MPs, he said. The Canadians did it. The Tories did it in the UK, but they fucked it up. The New Zealanders did it to a lesser degree. So this guy who's advocating for this admits that the Tories did it, but they fucked it up anyway. So, this is the Reform Party. Now, what have we got here? The Liberal Reform Association was formed by Graham Haycroft, a 45-year LNP party veteran, and Heath Goddard, a successful businessman and a member of the party for 35 years. And the third founding member is Matthew Rowan, a software engineer who pulled back from joining the LNP because, in his view, it had lurched to the left. The 3 founders say their aim is to use the association as a vehicle to save the Liberal Party before a Nigel Farage-style Reform Party arrives to fracture the Conservative forces even further. So, Scott, I think in essence, rather than have a Nigel Farage-style Reform Party fracture the Liberal Party, they'd just like to do it themselves with their little group. The other thing about this, Scott, is one of these guys is a businessman behind Pillow Talk. like extremely successful businessman.
Okay.
And wasn't there a guy in the US?
Yeah, he
from
was
a
the
pillow company.
he was from a pillow company. I can't remember what it was called, but he was sued by the makers of those voting machines.
Yes,
Everything that he said.
yes.
But I can't remember what the name of the company was that he actually had.
That's right. He was backing Trump in that it was fraud by that company, and yeah, he was a pillow.
He was a pillow guy
billionaire.
too. Yeah.
There's something about it, Scott. If you make a fortune from pillows, you
That
somehow
you become a lunatic. My Pillow, that's right. Yeah, Alex Ryler's got it. It's My
Thank
Pillow.
Thank you, Alex. Good on you. So, yeah, if you meet a billionaire who's or million, almost billionaire who's made their money from pillows, dear listener, I'd be very wary of them because there's something about it that does things to them. Yeah. Goddard and Haycroft believe that many LNP voters are disillusioned that their sitting members are standing idly by while their party drifts to the left. Scott, there's nothing a Conservative hates more than seeing somebody idle. And these guys say that for sitting MPs, it's all about survival and not rocking the boat. Quote, they honestly believe that doing anything that is likely to change the status quo could negatively impact their re-election chances and their ability to keep their jobs, Haycroft said. Quote, sometimes all that is needed to get something going is just a little bit of grunt, obstinate persistence, and public support. And that's what these guys are going to deliver. Grunt, obstinate persistence, and public support, Scott.
You're idiots.
Yes. So, here's the good part, Scott. This is gold. I tell you. Goddard and Haycroft named 4 or 5 sitting members who would likely win a federal leadership ballot in a landslide and go on to win the next election as well. Scott, who do you think?
Andrew Hastie.
Yes.
Probably Jacinta Nampijinpa Price.
Yes, good. 2 out of 2.
And who's that idiot that was the treasurer? What's his name?
Well, I'll help you. Alex Antic, was he a treasurer?
No.
He's on their list. The other ones, I'll help you out. Matt Canavan and Barnaby Joyce. And there's one other name that they threw in as somebody who could win a leadership ballot and win the next election. You'll never guess.
Go on.
Tony Abbott.
For God's sake.
Asked whether the former PM would be able to make a comeback, I think in the Conservative world the answer is yes, Goddard said. And then, Scott, the Courier Mail handily has a poll asking the readers of this article who should be leading the Federal Liberal Party. And they had listed then these names: Tony Abbott, Jacinta Nampijinpa Price, Matt Canavan, Alex Antic, Andrew Hastie, and Barnaby Joyce. And in order, Scott, to see the results, I had to actually vote for one of them. So I voted for Tony Abbott, and of the 709 votes that the Courier Mail got, Andrew Hastie, 34%, Tony Abbott, 29%, Matt Canavan, 18%, Jacinta Nampijinpa Price, 11%, Barnaby Joyce, 6%, and Alex Antic, 2%. So that are the Courier Mail readers of this article. Nearly a third of them said, yeah, bring back Tony Abbott.
They're clearly nuts.
Yeah. Look, if you want to join, they're having a new members party rally at Pillow Talk on November 19th. Mark that one in your diary.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. What else have they got here? It's It's farcical, isn't it? So,
Oh, it is.
more farce, Scott. Thursday, October 30th, Courier Mail headline. Well, the front page of the Courier Mail these days, dear listener, those of you who don't read it, invariably the bottom half of the front page is a Harvey Norman ad. So you really you've only, the front page is just the top half of the front page. And the article, the headline was Miles from Reality. And essentially,
I did see this, yeah.
Basically because former Premier Stephen Miles came out being proud of the coal mining tax that's in place. And so the headline from the Courier Mail is basically saying, you've got to be kidding that you would be proud of these coal royalties. They're claiming mines closing, 1,000 jobs cut and 2 billion lost GST, but Labor leader proud of coal royalties. In none of that, Scott, do they mention the actual amount of royalties that are rolling in from this. And in nowhere, Scott, do they mention, like, the key to the coal mining sort of royalties tax was basically as the price of coal skyrockets, then the proportion of tax also increases. So if the price is low, the royalty is relatively low. But in the case of boom times for coal prices, instead of the coal miners getting to keep all that, they've got to share it with
the people that own the bloody
coal in the first
resources.
place. Yes. So the high royalties only kicks in when there's a high price. And then there's an entire editorial, Scott, because they're claiming because Queensland's getting so much coal royalties, we're actually going to get less GST. But they never state the actual figure of what we're getting in the royalties, which clearly is a lot more than the GST that we're losing. So they say this is in the editorial. This just might be the moment that former Queensland Premier Stephen Miles jumped the shark. Speaking at Left-Wing Australia Institute yesterday, Mr. Miles went into bat for the coal royalties regime introduced by Cameron Dick in the 2022 state budget. By the way, Scott, these are the royalties that the Chris Philly government
hasn't removed.
Yes, because it's just too good. The royalties, the highest in the world and introduced without consultation in the industry, produced rivers of gold for the state when coal hit record highs, which were then used to fund a spending spree as Labor desperately tried to cling to power. Where else? It said something. It goes on. Basically, a big whinge, Scott, on behalf of the miners. This News Corp is not there for.
No, it's not there for journalism at all. It's just there for them, their masters in the coal miners.
Yes, like the poor average Joes buying this newspaper, and they're basically saying to them, "You should be unhappy that your government is extracting mining royalties from these guys and trying to mount an argument as to why it's a bad idea." It's just evil, Scott.
It makes absolutely no sense at all.
Yeah, evil. What's happening in the chat room here? So, Alex, does that mean the average reader age is 70? I think so.
I would have thought so, at least.
So, yes, and the My Pillow. Thank you, Alex. So yeah, that's been going on. Albanese, Scott, in the lead up, well, since he got elected at the last election, there have been all these people running off to visit Trump, and Albanese didn't get a look in. And News Corp and Sky News were just talking about how our relationship had suffered, how Albanese didn't know how to get on with Trump, how it was a disaster for Australia that he hadn't met with Trump yet, and he couldn't organise took raffle in a pub or whatever, like if you can't talk to Trump, it's the end of the world, and our relationship is in a mess. And of course, Albanese eventually got over there and got all this praise from Trump, which ordinarily you'd go, "What's not what you really want?" But and AUKUS, Trump made noises saying, "Yeah, AUKUS, all good," which again is not what we want, but it's what News Corp wanted, and basically a rare earths minerals deal, kind of, in a sense like all Trump deals, just an announcement without any detail and without anything really concrete about it. But,
no, it's one of those. They haven't actually said whether or not we just want to extract them and then send them over to the US for them to process them, or whether they want us to fuck up our own environment by processing them over here.
Yeah, but the whole vibe of the visit was a big pat on the back from Donald to Albanese, with Albanese saying, "Good boy, good dog, well done, all's good. West, the Empire is happy with our little lapdog in the South Pacific, and all's good in the world with you. Well done." And just News Corp just did not know how to react to this. They were just flummoxed and struggling, and it was just comical to watch, actually. So that happened. Scott, we talked about no kings previously.
Yeah.
Which, Donald Trump behaving like a king or a dictator. And I came across this for a little comedy relief from The Late Show. So I'll play a little bit of this for your entertainment, dear listener. Oh, Landon Hardbottom in the chat room. But
we haven't heard from you for a little while, have we, Landon?
Yeah. Look, I think he praised Albo, but he gave Kevin Rudd a hard time.
He gave Kevin Rudd a hard time, and he didn't really. Even that, he tried to play us off as a joke by saying, "Oh, I don't like you either."
Yes, and it was a setup by a
Sky News journalist,
who basically put a leading question saying, "Kevin Rudd, the ambassador, has said all of these terrible things about you, such as blah 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 blah. What do you think of that, Mr. President?" Yeah, so that was the nature of that. But okay. Here's a little.
News Corp didn't praise.
No,
exactly.
They couldn't help it. So here we go.
But this is how it's been at every stop on the trip. Trump arrives, they throw a big party for him, then they immediately try to buy his affection with gifts. So South Korea, what do you got?
Korean President Lee lavishing Trump with gifts, including a replica of a golden crown.
We present this old crown to you on this joyous occasion of your state visit to Gyeongju.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Wow, a golden crown. What a lovely, thoughtful gift for our president. South Korea, can I just talk to you over here real quick? Hey, South Korea, what the are you doing? We have been trying real hard over here to gently steer our president away from the whole king thing. And then you come along, hey, President Trump, check out this cool crown. Try it on. Take it home with you. Not helping. Please, just give them a sack of money like a normal country and stop up our shit.
Oh, I think that were the South Koreans trolling them, the world, Scott, with that one?
Really wouldn't surprise me. It's just that it really wouldn't surprise me at all, because South Korea is a republic, and I just think to myself that they would have just actually been trolling him by giving him a crown.
Have they got that good a sense of humour?
I don't know. It really wouldn't surprise me, because he's such a prick and everything else that it really wouldn't surprise me. Like you look at, I was looking at that earlier today. You got pictures of him like really looking down on those leaders, Now, I know that they are generally shorter than he is, but fuck me, I don't think he needs to actually look so aggressive when he shakes their hands.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, I thought that was quite funny. In the golden crown. Scott, sitting on your millions.
I'm not sitting on millions.
As your regional slumlord of Queensland, the stock market bubbles, Scott.
Yeah, and that does concern me just a little bit because now I don't have a hell of an exposure to the AI or anything else, but they reckon that's where the next bubble is going to come from, is in technology. Now, technology stocks have been going up and up and up, and there's not really anything to show for them yet. Now, I would have thought that of those technology companies that are investing heavily in AI, 2 or 3 of them will actually make it, and then they will be the next big thing. But all the others are just going to go falling by the wayside. But it just depends on how much of it is a bubble behind the rest of the market. I would have thought that the S&P's probably got there's probably more of a danger that could actually, that it wouldn't actually collapse, but I think we could actually see a significant fall in the S&P 500, which will probably have a negative impact on the S&P 200 over here in Australia.
Well, when the US sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what the fundamentals are of our stock market. If there's a crash on Wall Street,
it's going to crash everywhere. Yeah.
So, once again, take your own financial advice. We're just speculating here for ourselves. You can just listen in, but we're not really advising you here. So, Michael Pascoe writing, he's a business reporter, experienced. He says, over more decades than I care to count of market watching and reporting, I haven't seen a time when there's been more widespread conviction that we're experiencing a dangerous bubble that's sure to pop, yet the money keeps pouring in to inflate it. And he says that the top 10 American AI companies have provided most of the US stock market's gains over the past 2 years and are now valued at $35 trillion, almost half the total market. Meanwhile, there are 20,000 cryptocurrencies worth $5.8 trillion. And of course, my humble opinion is that crypto is a heap of shit. So that's another big pile of money ready to just disappear. Yes. Yeah. So the total cash in the AI and crypto bets is more than a quarter of global GDP and is probably the greatest technology investment boom / bubble in history, according to this writer. So it does a bunch of figures about what it's worth, what you would need to do in order to get a return on the money that has been invested in this already, in this AI. And he says that, if these companies have to create products that people will buy, how much of these products got to be worth to justify this huge investment that's been made? And he said, if you look at Microsoft Office 365, the subscription service, so it's incredibly successful piece of tech, and it has a revenue of $94 billion. In order for the AI industry to support 7 to 10 firms, I'll need to support 7 to 10 firms in business. I don't know the exact figure there, but I thought I could say. In other words, to achieve an average return of investment, the AI industry will need to support 7 to 10 firms with businesses as widely deployed and widely subscribed to as Office 365. Like, it's just so unlikely to happen that they, the world couldn't support 7 to 10 firms all offering Office 365. Like, you just need the one. And it's not going to happen with AI, where there could be 7 to 10 firms all offering their own version of AI and being as successful as Office 365.
No.
And then it gets worse as your assumptions talk about sort of skinnier margins. So, and that a further complication is that AI will cannibalise much of existing businesses. So the fundamentals of what's happening with the amount of money being poured in, the return of investment, the incredibly successful products you would need to just have multiple firms having, that just doesn't add up. So, so of course, if the world turns around and goes, well, this is a bit of a bubble and kaboom, then there's just this cascading effect where everybody goes down in a big screaming pile of crap, don't they, Scott?
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things. It's, I've got some exposure to the markets, but not a hell of a lot.
Yes. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. I continually hear from boomers, Scott, who just refuse to acknowledge the high cost of, it's just young people today just need to work harder. That's the problem. And another graph I came across in Crikey, just about the cost of housing. And this was the percentage of people that spend more than 30% of disposable income on housing by age. Back in 1985, young people under 35, about 17%. Now, 38%. People 35 to 49 was about 11%, now 37%. This is the number of people who have to spend more than 30% of their income on housing. So you get these people who say, oh, yeah, housing was cheaper back then, but the interest rates were higher, so it all evened out. Well, no, it didn't. The costs were so much lower back in those days. And you get, oh, yeah, but people today, they just want a bigger, better house and they're not satisfied with the 2-bedroom workers' cottage that we had. Well, the answer is they can't buy them. They're not around anymore.
If they are, they're over $1 million.
Yeah, if they could, they would. So, but that myth keeps rolling on in Boomerville. Scott, Caitlin Johnston, one of my favourite writers, was thinking about AI. And you remember, Scott, when I had written a piece. Now, what was that about? And
that was in Israel, wasn't it?
Yes. And I'd written a kind of an essay on power in the world, etc. And I was testing out this software program which would convert something into a podcast. So if you had written an essay, then submitted it into this machine, it would create 2 fake people who would talk about that content in a podcast format. And it did it remarkably well, except the slant it gave at the end, where it
accused you of racism and all that sort of stuff, didn't it?
Indeed, yes. And it was an example where the algorithm had obviously been carefully structured so as to massage thinking. And it was an example where they weren't going to allow this AI product to easily disseminate what I was doing, which was a contrarian view as to sort of oligarchic power. And it was just a way of demonstrating how AI, or how powerful interests won't let it happen easily. And Caitlin Johnston has sort of written saying that they want you relying on artificial intelligence so that you will lose your natural intelligence. And she writes, your rulers want you to depend on machines to do your thinking for you. They want you relying on AI to do your reasoning, researching, analysis, and writing. They want you relying on artificial intelligence so you stop using your organic intelligence. They want your critical thinking skills to atrophy. They want you perceiving reality through interpretive lenses controlled by plutocratic tech companies, which are inextricably intertwined with the power structure of the Western Empire. Generative AI is just high-tech brainwashing. It's the next level of propaganda indoctrination. It is there to turn our brains into useless sludge, which cannot function without technological crutches controlled by the imperial plutocrats. Our brains are conditioned to select for cognitive ease, and that's what AI merchants are selling us. The sales pitch is you don't have to exert all that mental effort thinking new thoughts, learning new things, and expressing yourself creatively. This product will do it for you. But it comes at a cost. We have to trade in our ability to do those things for ourselves. In this oligarchic dystopia, it is an act of defiance just to insist upon maintaining your own cognitive faculties. Regularly exercising your own creativity, ingenuity, and mental effort is a small but meaningful rebellion. So exercise it. I like that, Scott. I don't like AI where people just...
No, it's one of those things. I'm not convinced it's going to work for us. You know, like Joe doesn't seem to be at all enamored by it, and you know, I agree with him most of the time. However, I can see it beginning to take over entry-level positions and all that type of thing. Like, you know, you've got the banks have been laying off call center staff because they're going through AI, you know, which is ridiculous sort of position to go and do, because AI can only get you so far before it's not going to be able to answer a question for you. And then they're going to have to say, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to transfer you to someone else. Yes. Which means they're going to transfer to a human being. They'll be able to pick it up fairly quickly and answer the question.
Yes.
You know, it's however, those entry-level positions, once they actually go, then the next positions are going to go are the mid-level, and then the only positions that are going to be there are the higher positions, but they've never had to learn. They've never had to learn to grow up with the business and everything else, and yet they're just chucked in as the overseer of it all, you know, which I think is very dangerous.
The areas where I think it's going to be particularly successful are the worst areas, Scott, namely AI in drones that shoot people or things. Is just going to be able to fly around and
liquidate people.
Yes, really cleverly. Know where people would normally hide, behind a rubbish bin or whatever, and hang around and shoot people. It's going to be really successful at that. Also, you know, looking at visa applications to the United States, when you submit your ETSA visa and you have to put in your social media profiles, it'll be really good at just trawling through your social media and determining whether you're pro-Trump, anti-Trump, and things like that.
Yeah.
Sort of really nefarious tasks like that. Actually figuring out what you should do in a complex situation, I think will be shit at. That's kind of summarising a whole heap of data or trawling through data, looking for patterns. Excellent at that. But that sort of trawling of data is often used by people who hold a lot of data and want to use the data to either sell you something or manipulate you in some way, or probably not for a good reason, but sometimes, like medical imaging, Scott, radiography, you know.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's getting better with brain
it is,
scans.
And they reckon that what it's going to do is going to pick you. You can go through and that sort of stuff. You get it to go through the scans. It'll only pass it over to a human doctor if it actually picks up something that's potentially going to kill them. So you're still going to have that last minute human interaction just to make sure that it doesn't actually get the diagnosis wrong. You know, I'm just a little bit concerned about it because I don't know, maybe I'm just an old fogey or something like that. I just don't think that it's a good idea that we hand over so much stuff to machines to make the decisions. Because if it actually ever gains sentience, then it's going to look at the environmental problems. It's going to say there's one cause of this: it's humanity.
Well, I think that back in that article we were talking about the bubble, and it was like, well, if you know, that was sort of describing how this AI cannot basically create so many successful programs. It's just impossible. But it basically said in there somewhere, it would be even worse if it could, because if it actually could, then all the people that would be put out of work
would
and
be
have nothing
enormous.
to do would be enormous. And it's not like, Scott, we have a habit of saying, well, gosh, now that productivity has increased dramatically,
We can actually reduce the number of hours that we got to
you
work.
can all just go back to 2 days a week or 3 days a week. Like, that's not what happens. It is, you're on your ass, and unless you've got a job we need you to do, and otherwise, sayonara and see you later. And so, yeah, great productivity advantages in certain fields, but will that flow on to actual benefits where people have to work less? No.
No, it's not. It's only going to increase the profits of the businesses
Yes.
that employ people.
Yes. and
Because you're
create-
right. You're not going to go from 37 hours a week down to 24 hours a week.
No. You're just going to go from employed to unemployed.
Exactly. Which means you're going to have people that are lucky enough to be employed are going to be earning probably more money than what they're used to, but they're not going to be earning anywhere near as much as what they should be earning because they're probably doing the jobs of 3 people. So rather than getting 3 times the salary, they might get 1.5 times the salary. Yeah.
Quickly, around the world, Scott, again, another Caitlin Johnston article. She's such a good writer. It's just news story after news story about the US and its allies terrorising the world today. The Rapid Support Forces, RSF, have been filming themselves committing horrific massacres in Sudan over the last couple of days, reportedly murdering some 2,000 civilians. The RSF and its atrocities are backed by the United Arab Emirates, a close partner of the United States. Meanwhile, Israel has committed another wave of massacres of its own throughout the Gaza Strip, reportedly killing 104 people in a single day, including 46 children. This is as many Palestinians as would typically be killed on any given day in Gaza prior to the so-called ceasefire. Scott, it was exactly what we said. Ceasefire, bullshit. At some point, the Israelis will say, Hamas has breached the ceasefire and we're going to start shooting people. And sure enough, exactly what they did. And one of the pretenses was the bodies that they were giving us, the so-called Israeli hostages, weren't the right bodies. But, that was their reason for shooting them. And, Hamas are going, well, it's pretty hard to identify people in this shithole that you've just left us in. But anyway. Of course, they're warming up, Scott, for an invasion of Venezuela.
Yeah, they are. They're getting ready for it.
They're boasting, Scott, as the US military just blows up ships in the waters off Venezuela. And these poor dudes are in these tiny little boats. It's like 2,000 miles from Venezuela to the States. They'd have to refuel 15 times or something to get there in the boats that they're in. They're just... And Venezuela, as we've already discussed, doesn't produce fentanyl or any of the large quantity of drugs that they're talking about. So they're just popping people off, just killing them because they feel like it. That's just going on.
Yep.
Fortunately, it's a democracy, so that's all okay.
I know that Venezuela has been targeted and all that sort of stuff, but, what was that president that died? The guy that was the president after Gerald Ford before Reagan, Jimmy Carter.
Yes.
He actually went over there and said he said as an electoral observer, and he said that no, it was all fine, everything was done above board.
The Carter Institute.
Yeah.
A lot of work where they were basically thousands of volunteer people monitoring the Venezuelan election. Yeah. But that wasn't good enough. A friend of mine posted something on Facebook. Where are the Western protesters? What could be missing ingredient? Greta Thunberg's cohort don't seem at all interested in this real, not fictional genocide, talking about Sudan massacre that we've just described. So why isn't the world going on about that massacre?
Because I don't think the world has actually heard much about Sudan.
No, that's true.
Now, I do read a hell of a lot, and I was aware that Sudan had a problem, but I didn't realise it had got as bad as this.
Yes. So, but also, as she says, I'm paying more attention to Gaza because my government isn't trying to make it illegal for me to criticise the RSF. Every major Western institution isn't dedicated to facilitating genocide in Sudan and crushing all speech which opposes it. My rulers aren't backing a genocide in Sudan and commanding me to support it. She says opposing the genocide in Sudan is about saving Sudan. Opposing the genocide in Gaza is about saving ourselves, saving our free speech, saving our political systems, saving our hearts, saving our minds, saving our souls. So there is a difference there. It is the incredible opposition to the criticism of the Israelis and how it's just exposed our institutions. That's what's so incredible about the Israeli genocide of the Palestinians, whereas the situation in Sudan is just your regular, straightforward genocide without the mind control and speech control associated with it. It's like we can all just sit back and go, yep, that's a genocide, but we can't do that with the other genocide. Big difference. Well, Scott, 8:32. Where did I get to? Not too bad. We got through a few things there. Got anything you want to get off your chest, or shall we just...
No.
What is Scott? Alison just arrived late, so... what else we got here? There was
Nothing really, except those idiots that you just alerted me to, the three men that are setting up the, what do they call it, the New Liberal Party or something like that. It's just that if they actually get away with what they're planning on doing, the Liberal Party will be out of office for generations.
Like the end of them. Yeah. Land and hard bottom. The US is going to use nuclear to power AI. Yes, well, that's the thing. It's so energy intensive.
It does.
The whole AI thing. So, yep. And Landon says, put all your money into sodium-ion batteries. Landon would know. Yeah. All right. Okay, dear listener, thank you for your undivided attention. You have been good in the chat room. I'm not sure, actually. I think Joe's might be away
so
next
going
week.
to Melbourne next week.
You around? Yes, something like that. Yeah. I'm actually going to be in Sydney then as well. Don't know. Unlikely to be a podcast next week on that basis, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Just have a look on the Facebook page, and usually it will pop something in the afternoon if it's not going to go ahead. And if it is going ahead, there'll usually be something about that as well. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your attention.